Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Selling AI. Today, I have Jack Siney on the show. Jack is the co-founder and CRO at FrontRace, and he's got a resume that most sales leaders would definitely trade for. 5 successful exits, including companies acquired by Trimble and Thompson Street Capital, over $200 million in sales built across his career. And what makes Jack's perspective interesting is that he's not just a seller who uses AI, he's building an infrastructure layer that he believes is missing from every sales conversation right now. His argument is that companies are rushing to connect LLMs to their data stacks and not getting great outcomes out of it. There needs to be a middle layer that nobody's building, and that's exactly what FrontRace is doing. So in today's episode, Jack and I dig into why most AI agents fail in sales, what the metrics engine concept is, and actually how that helps connect AIs to outcomes, and what he calls the great upheaval, a world where revenue grows, but sales headcount might not. So let's get into it. Jack, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, Warren. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the intro.
Awesome. Well, walk us through a bit of your background. You built and sold multiple companies across GovTech, public safety, and now you're in sales performance intelligence. What's the through line of it all? How did you kind of get your evolution as to where you are now?
Sure. Appreciate the intro. Hope I can live up to that throughout the show. I started my career in the biggest organizations. I started my career with the U.S. Navy as a civilian. Worked on the F-18 Blue Angels program, if folks are familiar with that. That was an interesting time. And then I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant. So after that, the one thing I knew is I didn't want to work for a big organization anymore. And really that led me into the entrepreneurial world, which I've been in for the last 25 years. And each one of my entrepreneurial endeavors dovetailed from the one prior. So I used my background in working with the government. We started a software company that was in the public safety space, and it's selling to public safety agencies across the company, led to my next endeavor, which was GovSpend, and we were trying to help the government procurement process. And then now from those experiences, that really dovetailed into what FrontRace is and trying to help organizations sell better and be more efficient. So one kind of piggybacked off the other, trying to see real world problems that organizations were having and trying to solve those. And those simply make the best entrepreneurial endeavors, right? When you're solving a problem that you've personally experienced. So.
I agree. That's an awesome background. Cool. Well, let's dive in it. Let's start at the company level, and then let's dive into the sales process. So you've mentioned you think a large percentage of last year's, let's say, big AI, software investments, haven't gotten the result you expected on the business size. Why do you think that is? And what do you think is actually blocking companies from getting real value out of their AI initiatives?
Sure. So I think folks probably saw during Q1, there were a lot of studies out about what happened last year during the time. And I think the number was around U.S. companies spent about $650 million. A vast majority of those were not put into production or stopped mid-pilot or mid-effort. And so I think on the tech side, AI is crushing and doing amazing things. And I'm not a tech person at heart. My sweet spot in the area where I focus my career is really on the business side, the sales side, the client service side. And I think that side's really struggled with AI because what happens, AI can automate and improve a lot of processes where we know all the steps. Tech fits perfect. We're trying to code and make a website or make a program or make an app. But on the business side, we know there's some stuff, there's process that we've put in little charts and graphs in our sales manual or our client service manual. But inevitably, there's a million other variables that go into that interaction of building relationships, trying to make your prospect or client happy, how to deliver. And a lot of those elements are missed in the blocks that we create and we say, this is our process. So when we try to automate that with some kind of agent or some kind of standardized AI, it runs into some problems because it's missing some of the key elements along the way. And I think no doubt that's the variable that's affecting a lot of companies on the business side. Again, trying to figure out, we got to do something, but really what should that be and how do we improve our operations and how do we become more efficient? It's really been a struggle for most CROs or head of client service, the folks on the business side.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think the comparison there that comes to light is when you're implementing AI when it comes to, let's say, tech, right? A lot of the people aspect is kind of cut out of that process, right? You're trying to manage using compute power better, right? But when you start to implement it, let's say in the client services and you start to get in more robust kind of project basis, what you're really doing is almost adding a new hire. You have a new person on the team. This Claude is new, right? Let's introduce Claude. And we've only been working with Claude for 6 months or a year. It's hard to figure out how to work with them, how to make it better. Sometimes it makes it worse. And so it's almost like you have
Yeah.
this like a complex person to put into the loop. And so we don't know how to work with it and we're not doing it very well. Is that like an apt way to kind of look at that juxtaposition there?
I think part of it, no doubt, there's a personality type, a new member on your team, but I also think it's the little human steps, particularly in the sales process on the business side, that gets missed. And so again, I think every company that's any mature company has a process flow diagram that says, hey, this is how we sell, right? This is you go to their sales manual. There's 22 boxes or 34 boxes. We outreach, then we send them an email, then we send them a company overview, and then we schedule a demo, and then we follow up, and then we send them pricing, and then we expand our cast of characters, and we try to get a contract, and blah, 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 right? But the reality is, the real world part of that is in between those boxes, our sales reps, our client service reps, the people side, the CEO sometimes, step in and having a myriad of interactions with most clients that either help or hurt, but they're involved in the process. We're building relationships. It's those things that, hey, we see the news article, we send it to one of our prospects, we see something happening that could help a company that we're working with. It's all those little steps in between these we talk about these micro steps that happen that, again, build relationship, move your client to a better place that aren't in some process flow diagram, right? It's the human part of our interaction. And so much of that gets lost when companies of goodwill are trying to enact an agent. Let's just say if you're trying to put an agent in to replace maybe your SDR process or improve your SDR process, well, if your SDR is on LinkedIn and the middle of every week they send just say a sports update to a client, like some client loves the Chicago Bears, and they say, oh, look at their draft pick, or oh, here was your quarterback out. And it's small and it seems almost inconsequential. But if it helps build relationship and it helps have that client have a great affinity toward your company, it's a big thing, right? And manifested over time, can have a big impact over 6 months of interaction. And so that's what gets lost in my mind in all of the, let's just put an agent in or let's put AI in the process. There's another entity involved, but also it doesn't fully understand all these little micro interactions unless you share it with them, right? Unless you tell the tech to do those things, it gets lost. And then today, what's happening last year, we're putting a lot of things in place, missing a lot of the little steps, and then wondering, well, hey, why isn't this succeeding? Why aren't we having great success? Why is our close rate going down? Why is the number of demos we're booked going down? And people get really frustrated and pull the plug.
Yeah, and so I think again we're in the infancy of using this tech. So these are like honestly we've moved faster than one would expect, right? But it's like
Yep.
brand new. We don't know how to use it and we're not getting it. So
Amen.
I think what you're talking about there too is that there's only two ways for like AI to get into your go-to-market process. Top down, sales leaders say, hey, we need to use it, and this is how we need to use it. Or bottoms up, like individual frontline reps are
Right.
using it, right? So like both have their problems. Top down is not a one size fits all. Even just your 22-step playbook that we've had traditionally, right? It's like not one size fits all, it's like one size fits half, hopefully, right? Like if you're like half look like this and you're good, right? And the human element was important. And the bottom way, like one, we don't have time, frontline folks don't have time to do it. Two, even if they find something great and it's not really shared amongst the team in a way that's like best practices, right? So we're
Yeah.
still trying to figure this out. What are like in that scenario, I think the key is like when and how to use it effectively is what we'll have to figure out over time.
Sure. Agree. Totally agree. Yep.
In that sales process now, where do you think like some of the better gaps that we were being able to fill, or if you were like talking to a young rep right now or a sales leader right now, be like, hey, in your sales process, this is a really cool way that you haven't thought of to interact with generative AI to make your sales and buying
Sure.
process better?
No, I think it's a great question. I just want to, if I take one step back, it is shocking. I would just, to me, if you go study or throw any of this in ChatGPT and Claude, I think the following is true. We have immensely automated what happens in sales and client services over the last 30 years, right? Salesforce was introduced 2000, the first CRM, probably mid-1980s, early 1990s. And we are no better statistically in forecasting, reaching projections, sales team accomplishing goal than we were 35 years ago, which is shocking if you think about all the technology we've put against the numbers. Public companies, private companies, no better. And it's just so interesting we'd be in this boat. If somebody would have said that 35 years ago, you'd be like, I don't know, is it worth the headache? So with that said, no doubt AI is going to touch almost everything we do in the next 10 years. And so especially for ground level reps, frontline reps, or even CROs, VP of sales, the things that are, in my mind, round peg, round hole are what I see a lot of people using ChatGPT, Claude, all these tools for today are really the almost, I would say it's almost like a spell check on crack. It's like, hey, what's the right email to send? What's the right research to send? What's the right background information you can aggregate to be better informed when you talk to a client? So those things it's what you see happening in banking. Whatever an analyst could do, whatever research is being done, to me, that's round peg, round hole. AI is going to make that amazingly good. It can find everything about a company. Can it write a better email than you? Probably. Can it do research that in a tenth of the time that you could do it? Those are all amazing. Now it's about, hey, how do we apply that? And where do I stick it in? And the thing we've all experienced, if you've used AI long enough, is, in my mind, AI is about an 80% solution. Right? It's good, but if you don't double check it, it will hallucinate, find things that aren't true. I think Deloitte Touche was embarrassing last year. They had a whole report that went out with fake references and fake stuff to one of their clients. And so it's good to use, but we have to double check it. It gives you a solid 80% out of the gate answer, but you have to go through and weed through it, tweak it, make it your own, double check it, and confirm the things that it finds. And so to me, the initial part right now is any basic analytic stuff it can do. Everything beyond that, again, on the business side, it has been a struggle for people to scale so far.
Yeah, no, I think there's two separate points, and one that is actually like near and dear to my heart right now. So we'll go with that first one for a moment.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. I don't know this to be the case. I've said it about 30 times now, and maybe it's becoming true. Like, for real dollars, I don't know if sales quotas have moved since the late 80s. Right. So if you were like, your quota in 1988 was probably like $300,000, and now we're at $1 million. So in real dollars, we haven't made the selling process, and really more importantly, the buyer's journey, any more efficient. Yeah. And I actually feel like it's because most, if not almost all, of the tech that we've developed has been about letting the rest of the organization know how sales was going, rather than making it easier for the sales rep to sell, right? And so the good example would be like Salesforce, right? Hey, let's use Salesforce as a forcing function for selling process, right? Like, so this will guide you through a typical process, answer these questions, gate between pipe, and this was great, this is good, it was great. And the rep has to update it, and that'll force them to be better sellers. Well, I don't think it did, right? In theory, that worked out well, but I don't think it forced them to be better sellers. I think it forced them to fill out Salesforce, right? So it's just too static, right? I do think now the pivot with what AI can do with context being pulled from the conversations and surfacing up the right insights to the right people allows us to do that with reps. But then secondarily, we also should get all work off a rep's plate that is purely to update the rest of the org as to what sales is doing. So rep ops should be great. I want to know my forecast based on all the conversations I've had, not asking the rep, right? Like, don't ask the rep to forecast anymore. Get all admin off and give them tools to be better sellers. Does that check out with what you think, or is that completely off base?
No, I think it's true. I think one of the reasons Salesforce.com has exploded is, and I've used a series of CRMs over the years. As soon as a company gets to some size, you almost have to go to Salesforce, because other parts of the company, like you said, need to see what sales is doing. Right. So they either get handed what's been done, they need to forecast, finance needs to do invoicing. So it's like, and most people know, I would say most sales reps want like a pony, and Salesforce is like a stallion. It has all the things, every module, and it can get very daunting. But I agree, and I think the magic of AI, we've spent all these years measuring and trying to do dashboards and all these kind of KPIs, but they haven't been measuring what actually drives success. Why, when you have two reps, when all of their metrics look very closely aligned, why is one outselling the other one 3 times or 4 times? And you can ask any VP of sales or CRO, and the answer they normally give to the board or to the CEO when they get asked is normally a lot of fluff. I don't know. Well, Susan's just better at sales. She had a better network. She's a better communicator, whatever it is. And it's been left that way for a lot of years. And now I think AI is going to help kind of blow through that door and start to give us some real analytics about what really drives this disparity. Why is, when the basic metrics look the same, why is somebody outselling another rep or closing or retaining at 3x when all historical metrics looks the same. And I think that'll be one of the most amazing parts about AI going forward.
Yeah, totally agree. And that so that's a good dovetail into let's talk about our next topic. So front race in particular, it's a complex product and driving really good insights. One of the cores is this metric engine that you think is kind of key to leveraging AI in your go-to-market flow. Can you tell us more about like that metric engine, why it's important, what it is, and how that particular lever could help us sell better?
Yep, sure. So I think if folks, two paradigms I would share. By the way, the vendors that are out there, Front Race integrates with all the vendors. So this is not pro one CRM or against this other tool or what have you. So we're really system agnostic. But if, as an example, for anybody that's used one of the enterprise CRMs, HubSpot, Salesforce, you name it, and you're trying to do pipeline, for example, those tools will not let you, if you try to follow a deal from the day it originated, if your sales process is 6 months, how has that deal changed over time? When did it go up? When did it go down? Why did it go up? Why did it go down? What was the pricing? When did the pricing change? And what were the variables to that? It's almost impossible with the tools to see how a deal changes. And you mentioned, which I agree with, get the sales rep out of doing the pipeline because sales reps, we're biased. We always think it's coming, right? Unless somebody hung up the phone and told us the kick rocks, we always think it's coming next week. So there are a set of analytics that can look at deals neutrally on a wide variety of variables and be able to give a much better forecast about, is that deal really coming in? And not only yes or no, but why, and the analytics behind that. And so those are the variables we believe are really important. So how that gets to this question about front race and our metric engine. So one of the reasons historically, if you just plug in AI and some simple queries into your company data, it'll work fine. If you say, hey, who has the best number of minutes or the biggest pipeline or any basic query, it'll be fine. As soon as you want to start to do a deep dive into your company's data and start to add 3 or 4 variables, a la on the sales team, if somebody had the biggest pipeline with the most number of meetings and what's their close rate over a 3-month period, that type of query, if anybody's tried that, will normally generate less than accurate results. You'll get a result, but if you go back and try to validate it, one of the nuances of the AI technology, it will start to hallucinate. And I'm not a tech person again, but it's really creating the coding, this behind the scene, and the joins that it'll do. It'll start to connect data that is not accurate. And so that is the problem in taking a basic LLM, and applying it to a data set. And so what we wound up doing to fix that problem, address that problem, is that we start to put concrete, we call it a metric engine, to each one of the variables. So we have over 150 variables that we put a hard metric to start to quantify. It's a specific number that it can then start to, then the tech can attach those variables and attach numbers to numbers over time. So not only do we hard code it, we track it over time and what we call this time travel. So you can follow a deal, how it changed, why it went up, what caused it. But the magic is this thing, as you mentioned, called the metric engine, where we put hard data points, hard metrics behind anything that someone wants to measure or think could be a factor in them closing deals. And when you start to have the hard numbers and say you measure it over time, then you can start to do real analysis that comes out with real answers based upon your corporate data. So
that's awesome. Let's dive just a little bit deeper and maybe let's put our like CRO, VP of sales hat when you're thinking on here. So I think one thing that I've always struggled with is when you really get down to it, at most like mid-size orgs, I imagine like the largest sales orgs out there don't have this problem, but let's say the mid-size, the data gets to small sample size really quickly, especially when you're starting to look at across reps or across industries or across product lines. So you have a $10 million, let's say startup, a $50 million startup, you probably have like 6 product lines and 11 different customer types and you don't want to admit it. So like it almost breaks down pretty quickly where I can get like, great, this is the number, but heads up, this could be like, this is a small sample size now. What I'd love to hear is like, one, is that a problem that you encounter a decent amount when you're looking at these metrics? And two, as a sales leader yourself, what are some examples, some like insights that you kind of like illuminated that maybe are non-traditional that's like, great, like on both sides, maybe like you came up with an insight to a super small sample size you should ignore, or another insight that's like, great, like this is actually really foundationally helpful. And it's novel, it's new now.
Yep, that's great. So if I take one step back, so what Front Race does, when we approach a company, we just put a little layer you mentioned on top of whatever they have. So you don't have to change anything, keep all your systems. And so we'll start to attach the data and normalize it. That's the background of our tech team, and it's amazing. And then we start to take AI and non-AI analytics, apply to that. And so we believe the magic, we talked about, we've had all this data for over 30, 40 years. The actual outcomes have not changed. So then it's like, it seems like we historically have not measured the right variables. Whether it's a big team or a small team, I'll just give you a list of some of these applicable, and then I'll give you one real world example. So things that are more pithy that people get wrapped up around, hey, what was the professionalism in my call? What was the tonality in our interaction? Those are like, we can measure those and then tie them to they go to success, but I'll come back to those. These can seem a little pithy. Things that are more hardcore are the following. What's the patient score? How much is someone talking in a call? Gong does a lot of this, and not talking in a call. What's the time between when the client talks and then you respond? What's the order of how things happen? Not just have things happen, like everybody, we mentioned those 22 boxes. What's the order? Because typically, again, why is somebody 3x over the 1x person? Sometimes it's the order of things. Sometimes it's the gap between those things. It's not necessarily the order. It's how long did I wait between those actions, right? Sometimes every action, we know this in sales. What's that thing? Every action gets a reaction. When we have a winning deal, there's typically a set of things that are correlated. So what's the correlation between when one thing's happened, what happens to the next thing? A la, we added the CEO to our cast of characters. Now does the deal change? Does the price change? What are the relationships? What were the relationships when the deal started? Was this a cold deal that came in via marketing? Did we get a warm intro from a third party? Is this somebody on staff knew that person, right? I'll give you one more. What's our pipeline? How are we doing this quarter, right? Those are variables that affect it. Are we doing really well? And when we're doing really well, we're less inclined to discount the deal. We're less inclined to be more aggressive. When we're behind, notably, we get a lot more, typically most organizations will get a lot more aggressive in pricing. Who sits in on the deal? Who sits in on the demos? How do we do the proposal? All of those things affect success, right? And so I'll give you one real example. We had a client who thought he was very frustrated, CRO, that he felt his sales reps they were having a lot of success. One of his best sales reps, type A. As soon as the client said something, sales rep would kind of have a standard go-to comeback. Really frustrated him. He's like, hey, it's got to feel more conversational. It's got to feel more relationship. So we would measure that for them. Over 6 months, we called it a patient score. Once the prospect or client started talking, how long before the rep responded and how long did they talk? The net of that analysis, none of it mattered. The CRO was bent all around the axle about it. It was literally inconsequential. If the reps responded right away, didn't matter. If they waited, didn't matter. How long the response was, didn't matter. How short the response was, didn't matter. None of those variables. And this was a training he put in place for 2 months about when they talk, we do this. When they do this, do. And so, it can sound very in the weeds, but I'll just tell you this. I just want to repeat this. Over decades, we've been measuring all these kind of big metrics. It's not in the big metrics. The difference between this rep that's selling 1x and your rep that's selling 3x, it's 20 small things. It's not one or two things. If it was one or two big things, we'd all do it. Most people in sales are type A's, right? We are type, tell me to be successful. Let me go study Bob. Warren's great. Let me sit with Warren. I'll just repeat what Warren's doing. It's not that. It's 20 little things along the way that makes this rep crush it. And for years and decades, we've missed those things and kind of gave it lip service and let it be unmeasured. Let it be unmeasured. And now we really have the ability with AI and some of the metrics to start to really deep dive and kind of take away that black hole of sales. We always thought, Sally's just really good. And you're like, it's got to be more than that, or we are doomed. We just spent all this money in our tech stack for not much reason, right?
Yeah. So there's actually two core thoughts there I think intersect really well along those lines. So to take it back to my original question, which you answered, was like, great, you end up with a small sample size problem a lot, right? So what you answered somewhat indirectly, but very well, is like, great, it's the way you get away from a small sample size is you look at behaviors instead of point in time actions, right? So the example I always come back to in this scenario is my sales enablement person at a company several companies ago came to me and was like, when we use this PDF in the sales process, we have a 40% win rate. And when we don't, we have a 5%, right? I'm like, well, that doesn't make that much sense. That PDF isn't really, it's a long sales cycle. It's a PDF, right? So like logically, statistically, it doesn't make sense. a lot of people would like grab onto that. Cool, like everyone grabbed that, right? Which is not the wrong answer. But really the correlation was there was one rep who sold better than everyone else and she used that
Yeah,
PDF more
amen.
than anyone else, right? So it was like a correlation, not causation in a small sample size. But when you start to look at behaviors are not point in time, they're constant, right? So like everything you described is a behavior. And so these happen thousands of times during a sales process, not 4 times during a sales process. And they're less relevant at like a what type of company and who is doing it kind of way, right? When you're looking at who you're selling. And so you get to aggregate those and end up with an analytics stack. And so then the second piece of that I think is really like fascinating is how do you then like enable the behavior stack? And it seems like you're able to do this over your decades of experience compared to when you go into an individual company to see what works. What's like the mix there, right? Do you find that like
Sure.
there's individual, like you go into an engagement and it's like at your company, X is true and it's really not
Yeah.
true at most companies? Or do you find there's a lot of overlap in terms of like successful sales motions that have commonality between that data?
Sure. By the way, sorry for your earlier question. Scale-wise, for us, the magic is there's really 2 variables. It's number of people you have on your team, and then historical information. So if we run into a company with say just 5 reps, but if they have 2 years of historical data, we can give them great insight, right? But if you have 3 reps and only information, data for the last 3 months,
Right. Yeah.
then you're like, not sure what is that in the world of stats, how statistically viable
Yeah.
that is. But
Right.
again, I think if you have 5 people and a year's worth of data, you can have enormous insights into that purview. Yeah, the other part of kind of where and when and what are we looking for us, I would just say, since COVID, we used to before COVID, things were so different. You could mimic a rep or follow them around. We've talked about this before and get the best of. Post-COVID, with work from home with so many organizations, it is extremely hard to start to figure out what does success look like and how do I share it. So picture this, you're a CRO, you go through the whole hiring process, you have a star. They're a star. They've had 2 other companies, they've been great, you're going to onboard them, and you're trying to share best of your company and what they do and how they do it. You're like, I don't know. Here's our sales manual. Bob, here are the stats, they can go look at it. And what are those things that make them great? If all that's happening in their living room, you probably have their pipeline, you have their emails you can go look at, you may have some recorded calls, you may have some recorded video conferences, and you're like, star I just hired, go watch all that and glean from it what you want. I think that is a very hard model, and I think that's what a lot of companies are countering now of like, everything's been a little glitchy since COVID, and it's trying to have, what are those things? And I think what we try to do for companies is the things that are driving success we find are typically unique at every company. And it's not, do people have to make a set of calls and do some outreach and have so many demos? And yes, there's no doubt. The court, so I don't want to be so, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but that's not what's driving success, because if it was, then you'd make forecasts every quarter, every month. You know what I mean? That's not it. And each company, what we found, we're a year and a half of this, it's 1 or 2 little things that have been unique to each company. We have not found a through line that, hey, if everybody just does X, Y, Z, because it's based upon the product, as you mentioned, the vertical, how much does it cost? There's a myriad of variables, but we have found the light at the end of the tunnel. There are typically 2 or 3 variables that are non-traditional that can have a big impact for a company. I'll give you one. We had one organization where a sales team, that was amazing, the impact of this. Once they sent a 7th text, so their CRM would be able to monitor text. Once they sent an 8th text, they never got the deal. That was it. They were 0 for like thousands. It was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. And so you could tell that was their call reluctance, deal was going south, then they just text somebody to death. And so it was a great training for the team to be like, hey, when we're disconnected, we don't have the right cast of characters, person's going silent. The answer is not to keep texting them to death, because then that deal's burned and never comes back, right? And so it's going through the data every time we deliver it. There's always 1 or 2 things that are shocking to the company. They're like, oh, who knew? You mentioned the PDF example. That was really a driver, but is it the real driver? And trying to analyze that in totality is a big endeavor.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. I think the part you're alluding to as well is that like point in time process things that do well in sales can be replicated. And I think sales and marketing are the perfect supply and demand kind of like juxtaposition where it's like as soon as something works, everyone does it and then it doesn't
Yeah,
work anymore. Right. So
yeah,
like, but the thing that can't change is what you're talking about, the analysis of those micro behaviors, those exchanges, getting the right stakeholders in the room, interacting with them correctly, truly trying to find a solution to their problems, and hopefully being that solution 1 out of 4 times. Those types of things is what we've been spending so much of our enablement time on, the steps, the skills, the knowledge, and so little on the behavior side. And so I feel like the behaviors is where I think AI could really help analyze the myriad of micro interactions to help
amen.
drive positive things over time, like years of development as a salesperson to nudge
So
us in a
true.
direction. Yeah.
So true. You know, so many people now are doing the whatever platform you love, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever. All that stuff. Larry Ellison said it great recently, which is that's all one to the same open data set. They're all it's the magic is in your data. It's your company data. And there were some reports recently about until you get that house in order, AI is only going to do so much for you. But again, all those tools, if you're just keeping the open data set, they're all looking at the same internet-based set of data. The magic is in your company's data. And the companies that are punting on that and be like, well, we'll get back to that or we'll figure it out later, you're missing, the answers are typically there. And it's just having the diligence and the desire to kind of, it almost feels like a step back, right? Hey, let's go back and get our data. Let's get it out of the silos. Let's standardize it and figure out what are our best people doing the best.
Yeah, and that leads us to another big barrier that is happening right now to this level of success. So I think there's two types of solutions for AI that execs are kind of like analyzing right now. They're like point solutions. They cost not that much per month. They're not a fundamental sea change in how you work.
Yeah.
They improve a specific process, right? They're cheap, they're efficient, and they sometimes could have maximal gains. I'd say like with the right effort, there's good gains to be
Yeah.
had, but
Yep.
sometimes they can
There
be
are.
minimal.
Totally agree. Yep.
Then there's the sea change you're talking about, the access to your data and how we function as an organization being fundamentally different. And I think that's where Front Race kind of fits more, right? This is a decision to like look at how you manage go to market at your organization fundamentally different over the next 3 to 5 years. That's a harder leap with the uncertainty we have right now.
Yeah.
So from both perspectives, you're selling this product, but then also the looking at how the buyers are viewing your product. How would you like advise that a seller looks at that, right? Like,
Sure.
how do I
Sure.
get like a sea change in someone's hand in an effective way?
Amen. I agree that it's AI is so noisy right now. Three solutions, right? There's the free $20 stuff. God bless. Keep doing it. Let's all get
Yeah.
smarter. That's
Yeah. Right.
revolutionized the world. Every product in the world says they have AI now, whether they're tech or not. If you go to any website today, there's some reference on their homepage
Yeah.
of AI.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then there's net new standalone AI ventures like we're doing. And so very noisy. I would say this kind of with my little sales hat on the Front Race. One of the unique parts of what we tried to do is we didn't want to approach any company and say, stop what you're doing. We're the answer. We're the holy grail. In fact, we do just the opposite. We say, hey, listen, keep doing what you're doing. You should pilot things. Go look at stuff. What we say to a company, let us come in. Don't change anything you're doing. We're just going to connect what you have today. No risk. Don't buy anything new. Don't add. Let's connect what you have. Let's look at the data and start to do analytics. And so Front Race, we never want to be on this cutting edge of AI. These tools out here are going to change constantly. We've already seen it over the last 2 years. It's sick, right? We're one step in to help you constantly analyze what is your data saying, what tools do you have, and we'll analyze it. If you want to automate your SDRs, well, great. What tool did you choose to automate it? What's the impact that's having on your organization, right? We believe going forward for the next 3 or 5 years, it's making sure you have a platform that lets you look at the data, analyze it, compare it, and track the outcomes. That's the magic. It's not, everyone has an opinion about what's the right sales model or the right sales training or what process. We track it. Did we win? Right? Is it causing you to win more? And then also the things that you've lost, let's analyze that. What's causing you to lose? And so my humble opinion, I believe Front Race is the thing, going back to what you said, it's so risk adverse. It's like, don't do this big swap out. Let's just let's just add a little layer on top of what we have, okay? And we'll, by the way, we'll put our money where the mouth is. You can try it for a month. You don't have to pay us. Like, let's look at what you have, and then you can start to make smart decisions about this last 10%. What do we want to automate? What's automatable? What does fit the good AI use cases? What doesn't? Because there's so much human interaction today that might change in the future, right? We want to stay one step in from the cutting edge tools because I think they always are going to change. But we want companies to have a baseline of data of what's happening, wins and losses, and make strategic decisions. So that's what we say to the executive teams that we interact with. Hey, keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop your pilot. Let us put a thing in place and start to make you smarter every day. And then you can do it that way you want. You want to automate the whole thing? You decide over the next year? God bless. And then let's measure that automation. Because if you just jump over the bridge and get rid of your team and automate the whole thing, that can be really daunting. And I don't think there's a need to do that anymore, but let's make sure you have a tool that measures what's the impact of what you're doing and is it improving or hurting your net results. And so that's what we try to do for companies is exactly to lean into exactly what you said, because there's so much out there. Hey, let's get a baseline, as you mentioned, a layer, and then you can add to that and put things into it as you want. Don't do anything drastic because it could look very different 2 years from now.
Great. Awesome. Cool. Maybe last question then. So
Yeah.
you kind of talked about like the great upheaval, right? Like, and the idea is that like
Yeah.
companies are going to grow revenue and margins without having to scale a head count because of this tech, right? It's actually kind of like the opposite of what we talked about earlier, where
Oh,
we
yeah.
haven't moved efficiency since the 80s. Now, if this great upheaval were true, then there's going to be a sea change event
Yeah.
there. How do you feel that changes like the future of go to market or how sales leaders should look at like go to market in that
Sure.
space?
Yeah, this is one of my personal desires, just watching change management, watching what's going to happen, right? And there's certainly enough content out there on both sides. AI is going to be the best thing ever, make us amazing, and the best new technology we've ever dealt with. Or AI is going to bring society as we know it to to a halt. America's going to go away, and capitalism and what have you. And so, I think in my mind the reality is the struggle, and I don't know how it plays out. Probably some good moments and some bad moments, or we've talked about, which is we've never seen historically the public market crushes CEOs when they do these riffs, right? Hey, you must have overhired. You don't know how to manage your business. Why would you have to fire 20% of your staff? Or you did something wrong if we're at this spot. And over the last 6 months, 6 to 12 months, we've seen an exact 180 of that paradigm where CEOs and public companies are actually being rewarded. They're doing these layoffs. They're attributing it to AI. The market we've seen recently has upticked those companies 7, 8, 9, 10% in their market cap. And that, to me, is a really dangerous outcome. Not because the world's going to come to an end and are we going to upturn the entire economy? TBD, right? That's beyond my pay grade or beyond my mental stimulation. But I do know that we're all lemmings. And if we see, oh, crypto's so hot, let everybody get into crypto, goes up. So now public CEOs see, oh my gosh, the recent trend is the companies that do riffs, not only is our payroll lower, our market cap's going up percentage-wise. Notably, you have to believe that every boardroom and every CEO is having that conversation now. Hey, should we just gut our, Jack Welch just gut our 10%, and not only will we not get hit for it, we're actually going to get an incremental benefit, and it'll give us more liquidity. And that to me gets into a kind of a scary loop. And where that ends, that could be a race to the bottom. But that to me is. It's 100 years from the Great Depression. That's the Great Upheaval term. We went through the Great Depression 100 years ago. A lot of things were out of control. Now it's, can we get AI up and running, and can the market adjust to it sometime around 2028, 2030 so that it's accretively better for all of us?
Yeah.
TBD. The timing has to be really good. But right now it seems like we're gonna rush to some of these. I could do it with less people, and I don't think companies have seen that again outside the tech group play out well yet. So
Yeah, it's an interesting
fingers
position,
crossed.
right? And obviously,
Yeah,
there's a lot of unsureness there, right? Like
yeah,
on one hand, so I think from like a CEO or executive leadership standpoint, the layoffs are almost seen as a forcing function, right? Like, great, we're not going to get better. Like, no one's just going to get better on their own. So I'm going to cut 20% of the workforce, show that we could do it with 80%, and everyone will do more, right? So it's like a forcing function. It's lazy leadership, if you ask me, right? The opposite comparison doesn't make it any true that I talk about when I engage with companies is like, if your financial advisor came to you and said, I used like AI last year on your portfolio, and we went from a 7% return to a 14% return, right? So I'm now doubly as efficient with my portfolio, right? I wouldn't be like, cool, let's take the money out, right? Like, I'd be like, no, that's great. Like, you're like, now that my team should be 20 to 30% more like efficient on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The people are now leveraged. Now there's a ceiling on how much work can be done, but I think that's lazy leadership in that perspective. Doesn't mean that's not the direction you're going to go, right? So, and the sales side in particular, again, we talk about nothing's moved in terms of like quotas in 30 years. Tech hasn't helped. What'll be interesting is that at its core, what salespeople are trying to do is like get people to be like, I have a solution to a problem that you have, and you should spend some time solving that problem right now because there's an impact. That's all we're trying to do in the middle, right? Like, in a perfect information world, you wouldn't need salespeople. I have a problem, I go figure it out, I buy a piece of software or do something different in a process, and I solve the problem. The salespeople are the problem solvers, middlemen, connectors, right?
The magic though in that, the magic in that, if I get to that, like is,
please do.
I think in the marketing world, that's the magic. If you think about this paradigm, I know for my company, when I get a referral, it's a layup. You know, when somebody's used my stuff, refers me to a friend, the friend's already pre-sold almost, and the process is a million times easier, right?
Yeah.
And so then it comes down, if AI can get us to better marketing so that we don't, all of historical marketing and sales have been, I got to talk to 100 people to get 20 conversations, or get 20 people interested, to get 10 demos, to sell 5, right? And like, imagine if we can use the AI and the technology, and some of this gets into data privacy of like, no, I only have to talk to 20 because, you know, I've already down to the 20 that have already said, I'm struggling with X and you're an X solver. Like that, then we're round peg, round hole. And I'm not sure, I still think people want, you mentioned the financial planner. Do I want to automate it and not have Bob who I can go talk to? I don't know, right? But I think there's a lot of people, because people still want to talk to people, and especially the more money you're spending, you don't want to necessarily just do it in some automation world. But it's but if we can get to better marketing so that I talk to less people, that then makes the process so much more efficient, right?
I think you're always going to want to buy from a person. I want to speak to little things, no, but bigger things, right?
More money, right?
Because there's also a post relationship that's automatable as well, right? Like, after I buy your expensive software, that's a major part of my business, we're going to be working together for a while. Sales is the entryway into that, right? But on the flip, 1 out of 10 websites, I go to the website and I can figure out what they do and who they sell to, right? So like, we're still at a point where it's like, we're going after such a big market, it's genericized. I almost never know what someone does when I go to their website. We could fix this problem in a better way now that makes really the buyer's journey way more efficient. And then that's when you'll see quota per rep go up, right?
Yeah.
Where we'll
get out of this. Frustrated. Have you ever had a problem with Google or Facebook and you can't get a hold of a person, right? You're like,
no.
I mean, they can really cut. I've had 1 or 2 corporate issues over the years, and it's in a black hole. You're like, well, our page just got turned off. You're like,
and in that scenario, it's really easy to switch.
Right?
Like, now I'm going to switch to somebody else because I don't know somebody there, right? So I totally agree. So that's it's definitely the evolution that we're going to have to get through, hopefully artfully, over the next few years, and we continue the trend of brand new tech creating work rather than destroying work. So let's fingers crossed. Great. Well, Jack, I really appreciate taking the time today. Let me, for our listeners, where can people find you? You post on LinkedIn? You write any?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Jack Siney. Yeah, Jack Siney. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a notable LinkedIn presence, and frontrace.com is our company. And I mentioned a little earlier, one of the things we'll do, I want to say in the most humble, loving way, I think a lot of people are locked up. The AI thing has people, I don't know what to do and how to do it. And we've tried to create an environment where, hey, we'll let you, don't take our word for it. Go use it. No obligation. If you don't love it, don't get it. You know what I mean? Not like a free pilot, hey, you can try for a while, but I think people are really lost in the AI world and want to be a help you get to a peaceful spot, because we're all, like you said, it's all going to keep changing over the next 3 to 5 years. So how do I do incremental things to help me be better at the process. That's really what we're focused on.
Great. That's a great approach. Well, Jack, I appreciate taking the time. It's been a really thoughtful conversation, and thanks for being on the show.
God bless.